Before we dive in, viewer discretion is advised. This content is for entertainment purposes. What happens when a titan of the silver screen enters the gladiatorial arena of daytime television only to systematically dismantle one of its most ferocious combatants? Today, we chronicle the legendary confrontation that left Joy Behar so utterly disarmed. She was forced into a retreat from which her on-air authority would never fully recover. This was no mere celebrity spat. This was the moment Tom Hardy's surgical intellect met Joy's barrage of interruptions, and the fallout was nothing short of catastrophic. But before we dissect this masterclass in verbal warfare, ensure you are subscribed for more tales of giants clashing, and declare in the comments below what is the fate of those who challenge the unchallengeable. Now let us set the stage for the fateful collision of these two formidable forces. The studio lights burned with the heat of a Coliseum sun that Tuesday morning as Tom Hardy took his place in the designated chair on The View's battlefield. The revered British actor, a man forged in the crucible of intense roles from Mad Max to The Dark Knight Rises, had come for a routine promotional tour. No one, not the audience, not the producers, could have foreseen that this perfunctory appearance was destined to become a legend. Joy Behar, enthroned in her usual seat, possessed a familiar glint in her eye, a look the faithful audience recognized as the prelude to an ambush. She had spent days gathering her ammunition on Hardy, excavating old interviews and controversial statements, preparing an arsenal she believed would guarantee another signature takedown. A palpable tension settled over the panel. Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, and the others could feel the change in the air, a silent prelude to the storm, even before the broadcast began. And so, the battle commences. Joy launches the first volley with the condescending smile she reserves for subjects she intends to dissect. Let's talk about your comments regarding method acting. You've said some pretty intense things about how far actors should go for their craft, don't you think? She presses. That's just a fancy way of saying actors should be allowed to behave badly. Hardy leans back almost imperceptibly, his piercing blue eyes assessing Joy with the same unnerving focus he brings to a role. A pause hangs in the air. A silence so profound the entire studio holds its breath. He then deploys his counterattack, his voice a low gravel. Well, Joy, I believe there is a vast difference between commitment to a craft and simply behaving badly. Though I suspect, he adds, the words landing with pinpoint accuracy, you might not perceive the distinction. Method acting is an exercise in discipline, in research, in profound respect for the process. It is not, as you suggest, a shield for tantrums or an excuse for poor behavior. The other panelists exchanged nervous glances across the table. This was not the standard differential celebrity interview. Hardy had not just deflected Joy's loaded question. He had returned it with interest, and everyone felt the tectonic plates of the conversation shift. Joy's smile flickers, a momentary loss of composure before she reloads and doubles down. Her voice now sharpens to the cutting edge that made her a legend in confrontational television. Oh, please, Tom, she scoffs. We have all heard the tales of actors who hide behind being in character when they are in reality just being insufferable. Surely you can concede that some of this method acting business is nothing but pretentious nonsense. Pretentious nonsense. Hardy repeats, his voice calm, his accent lending each syllable a deliberate surgical weight. That is a fascinating diagnosis. Coming from an individual who has built a career offering verdicts on professions they have never practiced. Tell me, Joy, what is your formal training in the dramatic arts? What gives you the authority to so easily? I've sat through thousands of interviews with everyone from respected journalists to tabloid reporters, and I can tell you with complete certainty that what you're doing right now has absolutely nothing to do with journalism. This feels personal, and I'm curious about why that is. The other co-hosts were now visibly squirming in their seats. One of them attempted to interject with a comment about Depp's upcoming film, but Behar cut her off with a wave of her hand, clearly determined to continue her line of questioning. Personal. Behar laughed, but it came out forced and unnatural. Johnny, everything about your life has been personal and public for years. You can't have it both ways. You can't court the media when it benefits you and then act like a victim when people ask tough questions. Depp's smile widened, and for a moment he looked almost impressed by Behar's persistence. You know what, Joy. You're absolutely right about one thing. I have been in the public eye for a very long time, and I've learned a few things about people along the way. For instance, I've learned that when someone is this determined to make another person look bad, it usually says more about them than it does about their target. The studio audience was now completely silent, hanging on every word of this unexpected verbal sparring match. Behar seemed to realize that she was losing control of the narrative, but instead of backing down, she decided to escalate even further. Are you seriously going to sit there and lecture me about character? She demanded. You're the one who. But before she could finish her sentence, Depp held up his hand in a gesture that was both polite and commanding. Joy, I'm going to stop you right there because I think we've reached the point where you need to make a decision about what kind of show you want to run here. The silence that followed Depp's statement was deafening. Even the camera crew seemed frozen, unsure whether they were witnessing great television or a complete disaster. Behar's mouth opened and closed like she was trying to find words that simply wouldn't come. And for the first time since the interview began, she looked genuinely uncertain about how to proceed. Depp continued, his voice remaining calm, but gaining an edge that suggested he was done playing defense. You see, Joy, you invited me here under the pretense of discussing my work. But what you really wanted was to create a moment. You wanted to be the person who finally got Johnny Depp to break down on television. The problem is you've made a fundamental miscalculation about who you're dealing with. Behar finally found her voice, though it came out sharper and more defensive than before. I don't know what you think you're implying, but I'm a professional journalist with decades of experience interviewing celebrities. I don't need to create moments. They happen naturally when people are honest. Journalist, Depp repeated, and his tone carried just enough surprise to make it clear he found the description amusing. Joy, with all due respect, you host a daytime talk show where you and your co-hosts discuss pop culture and politics. That's entertainment, not journalism. And the fact that you're trying to hide behind the shield of journalism to justify what is clearly a personal attack tells me everything I need to know about your character. The audience was now completely captivated. What had started as an uncomfortable ambush was turning into something far more compelling. A masterclass in how to handle hostile questioning without losing composure. Several people in the audience could be seen leaning forward in their seats, completely absorbed in the verbal chess match playing out before them. One of the other co-hosts tried again to redirect the conversation, saying, Johnny, maybe we could talk about your new film project and what drew you to that particular role. But Behar wasn't about to let anyone derail what she still believed could be her moment of